Hi class, welcome back to week 7. And in this week, we're going to look at chapters 11 and 12. And in chapter 11, we're going to look at different populations, special populations as it relates to exercise. And we'll look at groups such as the elderly. We'll look at special needs groups. We'll look at cardiac patients, diabetes, a variety of groups that have special needs as we consider how to work with them. And then in chapter 12, we'll be talking about dysfunctional eating disorders. Very interesting chapter dealing with the psychological aspect of eating disorders. We'll have our quiz as regular, and also there'll be a discussion this week on body dysmorphia. I will look forward to your contributions there as well. I thought I would take this week and just talk a little bit about what's going to be due next week in your final CAP project. So let me go over to that screen, and now we're going to talk about next week's final CAP presentation. And that will be due a week from Wednesday, the last week of class. You need to have that turned in by Wednesday. So it's a good idea to begin working on that now. Just as a reminder, the last weeks we've been looking at different psychological aspects of athletes in different populations. And so now you have selected a population, you've done an annotated bibliography, and now we need to put together your final presentation. Asking you to put that in a format like my lectures, where you'll have the presentation in the video format along with a PowerPoint behind you. Again, this will be due on Wednesday, and there is a late submission penalty of 20% off, up to 2 days late, just because grades are due and it takes some time to grade these. Again, you may use VoiceThread or Screenomatic. Those are two platforms that you should think about using as you put together your presentation. Again, this is not a paper. There should be one submission, and that submission would include both the PowerPoint and the video. So you might say, what do you want me to put in there? Well, first of all, start with a title page with your topic, the name of the class, and that's your first slide. Then provide a brief summary of the population you selected and why you selected it. Again, limit that to one slide. You should discuss 3 scholarly sources, again, from the annotated bibliography, and why that is important to the cognitive and psychological intervention you plan to provide for your population. In other words, why are these sources important to the group that you're going to be working with? And just keep in mind, 5 sources must be cited in the presentation, and those should be listed on the final slide for a reference slide. Discuss specifically the physical, emotional, social, family, culture, and that impact on your population as it relates to motivation, arousal, stress, anxiety, reinforcement. The idea here is, how can you use these aspects to help work with the population you've selected? And that should be limited to 2 slides. The next slide should identify barriers that could hinder the psychological growth of your population. And then the next 2 slides should discuss the 4 factors that you put in your outline submission. The next slide should be a verse that you will use as a mission statement towards your calling in this field. Explain why you chose it, how does it motivate you, and then conclude your final slide with what you learned in the class. Just share with me a highlight or 2 of maybe something that really stuck out, something that really impacted you, maybe something that sparked your interest and something you'd like to continue doing more research and learning on. And then again, make sure you do include a reference slide. Make sure you follow APA format. I'm asking for 5 scholarly sources, Again, you should cite that in the PowerPoint, but also put it in your reference slide. And I think it will be helpful if you go to week 8 and just review over the assignment and specifically look at the rating rubric that I'll be using. All right. I know that's a lot of information. We'll talk about it a little bit more next week, but I wanted to make sure that you get started on it this week because it is a major project